All right, ladies and gentlemen, this here is chapter 18, section 5. So as you can see over here on the left-hand side, we have our three main ideas again. The church is going to react to challenges by punishing people that oppose the church's teachings. The Christians are also going to fight the Moors. The Moors are Muslims, and they are in Spain and Portugal mainly. And the Christians are going to try to fight them to get them out of that area. And then the last thing that we're going to take a look at is the Jews and how they faced discrimination across Europe during the Middle Ages. Now, the last section ended with the Black Death, the bubonic plague. And really, during that time period, and that was the 1300s, the Christian church is actually going to be blamed for not being able to stop it or for really doing some of the bad things that come out of the Black Death. Now, during the Black Death, remember, they also blamed the Jews for the Black Death. Many of the Christian leaders really didn't have an answer for the Black Death, so they would actually turn towards the Jews and blame the Jews. If you can remember from the videos we watched, one of the reasons why they say is because the Jews would wash themselves. They would wash themselves before the Sabbath. And during the Middle Ages there, one of the things that was taught was, don't bathe yourself. One, it was gluttonous against the Catholic or the church teachings, and another is that it supposedly opened the pores and let the bad air in. So then they're going to try to persecute the Jews, blaming them for the Black Death and the spread of the Black Death. But what ends up happening also, and it was happening before the Black Death, is that many people within the church itself were questioning kind of the route that the church was taking. And some of these that did the questioning were really the monks, the friars, the nuns, those types of people that dedicate their life to really the religion, to their faith. And they kind of disagreed with some of the church's ideas. Really, they thought that the clergy, those priests and bishops and other people, they were too focused on money and not really on other things that would make you closer to God. So they were focused on money and land other than on being spiritual. So they began to preach their own ideas, and this is considered heresy. And heresy is just any ideas that oppose accepted church teachings. Now, what's going on here is people that preach these different ideas, they're called heretics. Okay? And so what happens is the Pope and other leaders are going to call for church officials to root out any of these heretics. They tried to be fair about it, supposedly. But what they're going to end up doing is really it's going to be like a Salem witch trial type of thing before the Salem witch trials. It's really a witch hunt or a heretic hunt. And many of the people that are going to be found guilty are either put in prison or some of them are going to be tortured and killed. Really, they're going to be tortured until they confess to heresy. And really, just to get the torture to stop, many of them will go ahead and just agree that they were teaching ideas that were opposed to the church and stuff like that. It was not a fair trial by any means. And then even in the early 1200s, Pope Innocent III is going to call for a crusade against heretics, really in southern France. And he's encouraging the King of France and the French knights to go out there and rid the country of heretics, rid the Holy Roman Empire, if you will, of anybody that opposes the church's teachings. Now, some of this could be for good reasons, like, hey, some people are preaching the wrong thing and all that. But mainly it was probably just because the Pope and other church officials could feel or could realize that their power over the church was slipping away. And what ends up happening? You have about 20 years of war that really just destroys a lot of the area, costs thousands of lives, money, treasures, destroys villages, all that type of stuff that's going on there. All right, so as you can see here, the next part we're going to be talking about is called the Reconquista. And this is going to be the attempt for Spain, basically, to go ahead and take over what the Muslims had gained from about the 700s up until about the 1000s. And you can see here in the yellow on this map, this is all Muslim control. The purple would be Christian lands. What's going to happen is the Muslims actually start fighting themselves within this area right here. It's kind of like a civil war for power and things like that. Here in the 1000s, it talks about the Muslim government falling apart. Really, it's just a weakening of the Muslim government because they're fighting themselves. And the Spanish Christians kind of see this as an opportunity for them to regain Spain and even over here what becomes later Portugal. And they see, hey, we can reconquer this from the Muslims, and that is what the Reconquista is just the efforts to retake Spain from the Moors. What's going to happen is you have a couple areas here. Castile, yeah, right here you can see Castile. There's other places like Aragon and stuff like that. These people, they're going to actually come together, the Christians in these areas, and they're going to basically conquer the Muslims. It's about 300 years, 400 years that it takes for them to actually do this. Here by roughly 1300, really Spain or the Moors only have a really small part of what we know of as Spain today called Granada. And that's really all that they have left by the end of this here. Then what's going to happen is roughly late 1400s, 1469 to be specifically, you're going to have this guy named Ferdinand, he's a prince of Aragon, and Isabella, a Castilian princess. They're going to marry. They're going to join up. Those two kingdoms are going to join through marriage. And really, it's a power play, but these two become very powerful together. And then they are going to be known as King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. What they're going to do is they're going to finish this Reconquista by eventually defeating the Muslim Moors in Granada in 1492. Very special year. Okay, that's the same year that Christopher Columbus is going to sail to the Americas. It was the end of the Reconquista that allows King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella to go ahead and pay for Columbus's voyage to the west. It's going to be a few years later then that Isabella and Ferdinand, they're going to ban Islam in Spain, and then this is pretty much going to lead to a policy that you can only practice Christianity while you're in Spain. Now, another thing that's going to happen during their reign, it actually becomes kind of a very bad thing for the Christians, is it's called the Spanish Inquisition. And this was an organization of Christian priests, and their job was really to go throughout Spain and, how would you say, they would punish anyone that was secretly practicing a different religion. So let's say someone was practicing Judaism, or someone was practicing Islam, someone was practicing a religion that was not accepted by Ferdinand and Isabella, which means Catholicism. Ferdinand and Isabella were Catholics. What these priests were doing is they were going around rounding up anybody that was not practicing that religion, and they pretty much punished them. As you can see here, about 2,000 people are going to die in this Inquisition. They're going to be put on trial, found guilty of not practicing Catholicism, and then they're going to be put to death. And another 1,400 are going to be put to death in Portuguese. There's going to be a Portuguese Inquisition also. Very scary time to not be a practicing Christian in this area. And then, of course, throughout this time period, Jews obviously are being persecuted. One of the biggest reasons why the Jews are being persecuted is that Christians believe that the Jews are the ones that put Jesus to death. So there's going to, of course, be an attempt to really kick out the Jews from Europe. Even during the Crusades, instead of actually going over to defeat the Muslims in the Holy Lands, some of the Crusaders actually just went and, tortured the Jews, persecuted the Jews, conquered Jews, say in Constantinople and in other areas throughout Europe. So that's one of the biggest things too, because like I said, they're also going to blame the Jews for, the Black Death and things like that. So because they weren't Christian, many of them were just forced to leave towns, banished from Europe, persecuted, killed, tortured, what have you. It was just a bad time during this time period here to not be a Christian. If you weren't a Christian, you were going to suffer. Very, very good chance of suffering and things like that. All right, so that's about it for this section 5. Very quick section, not too much with it there. Thanks.